My brother Aaron was always the favorite. Growing up, my parents made it crystal clear who mattered more. Aaron got the new car at 16. I got his hand-me-down. Aaron's achievements went on the fridge. Mine went in the trash. When I married Gemma 4 years ago, my mother Mabel actually said at the reception that Gemma was lucky Aaron was already dating someone else back then. Gemma heard that. She laughed it off. But looking back, something changed in how she looked at me after that night. For years, Gemma kept comparing me to Aaron. Why couldn't I be more ambitious like Aaron? Why didn't I have Aaron's confidence? Aaron just got promoted again. What was I doing with my life? I worked as an operations coordinator, decent salary, stable job. But apparently that made me a failure because Aaron was climbing some corporate ladder somewhere. Okay, we need to talk about something real quick because this dynamic is so common and people don't realize how damaging it is. You got parents out here literally ranking their children like it's a fantasy football draft, and then they act surprised when their kids grow up with issues. And Gemma? Gemma. Girl heard her mother-in-law essentially say, "You could have had the upgrade but you settled," at her own wedding. And instead of being like, "Wow, what a toxic thing to say about my husband," she filed that information away like a squirrel storing nuts for winter. She wasn't laughing it off. She was taking notes. 4 years of, "Why can't you be more like Aaron?" That's not a wife, that's a performance review from the world's worst manager. I found out about them in March. Gemma left her iPad unlocked on the kitchen counter, and a WhatsApp notification popped up from someone saved as gym trainer. I tapped on it, scrolled up through weeks of messages, explicit photos, plans to meet at hotels, and then I saw it. Aaron asking when she was finally going to leave me because he was tired of sneaking around. I didn't confront her that night. I sat with that information for 3 days. I went to work. I ate dinner across from her. I watched her lie to my face about working late while I knew exactly where she was going. And during those 3 days, I started planning. 3 days. This man ate dinner across from his wife, probably passed the salt, asked about her day, knowing what he knew, and didn't crack. That is not a broken man. That is a man loading his weapon. Most people would have exploded immediately, thrown the iPad, screamed, cried, whatever. But sitting there for 3 days, collecting yourself, making plans? Folks, when someone goes quiet after betrayal, that's when you should be worried. The loud ones are processing in real time. The quiet ones are architecting your downfall. And I gotta say, I respect the restraint because I would have simply passed away on the spot. The confrontation happened on a Sunday. I told Gemma I knew everything. She didn't even try to deny it. She stood in our living room and told me that Aaron made her feel things I never could, that I was boring, predictable, and honestly, she had settled for me because Aaron wasn't available 4 years ago. Then she said the words I'll never forget, that a real man would satisfy her, and I was just a useless failure playing house. Aaron showed up 20 minutes later. He walked into my house like he owned it. He told me I should have seen this coming, that Gemma deserved better than what I could offer. My own brother stood there and said he was doing me a favor by taking her off my hands. I told them both to get out. Gemma grabbed a bag of clothes and left with him that night. The divorce papers came fast. Gemma wanted it done quickly because she and Aaron were already planning to move in together. She wanted to keep the apartment we'd been renting, wanted me to just disappear quietly. The mediation meeting was scheduled for a Thursday at a legal office downtown, and that's where they really showed me who they were. I sat across from Gemma and Aaron was right there beside her, not even pretending anymore. When I signed the papers agreeing to the terms, Aaron leaned over and kissed Gemma right in front of me. He looked at me while doing it. Gemma laughed and said something about finally being free of the dead weight. I laughed too. They looked confused. Aaron asked what was so funny. I just told them they'd find out soon enough. See, during those 3 days between discovery and confrontation, I didn't just sit around feeling sorry for myself. I made some calls. I did some research. I found out some very interesting things about my brother's actual financial situation and about the apartment Gemma thought she was keeping. They thought I was going to crawl away and disappear. They had no idea what was coming. Update coming soon. This is just the beginning. The absolute audacity of kissing someone in a legal office during divorce proceedings while making eye contact with the person you just destroyed. That's not confidence. That's a villain monologue without the self-awareness. Aaron really walked into this man's home, said, "I'm doing you a favor," and thought he was the protagonist of this story. Brother really thought he was delivering some truth bomb when he was actually just speedrunning the Worst Sibling of the Decade award. And Gemma calling him dead weight while actively planning to stay in his apartment? Make it make sense. You hate him so much but you want his housing? That's like spitting in the chef's face and then asking for dessert. These two are so confident, so smug, and they have no idea they're standing on a trapdoor. When OP laughed, Guys, I got chills. That laugh wasn't defeat, that was a countdown. Update 1. Alright, you guys wanted the details. Here's what happened after I laughed in their faces at that mediation office. First thing you need to understand, our apartment lease was in my name only. Gemma never got added because when we first moved in 3 years ago, her credit score was terrible from some old student loan issues. The landlord agreed to let her live there as an occupant, but I was the sole leaseholder responsible for rent. Gemma assumed that after the divorce, she could just stay and take over the lease. That's not how it works. I contacted our landlord Ian the Monday after signing the papers, explained the situation, told him I was moving out and giving my 30-day notice as required. Ian said that meant Gemma would need to apply for a new lease on her own or vacate when my notice period ended. When Gemma found out, she lost it. She started texting me non-stop, demanding to know what I was doing. She kept saying I was being petty and vindictive, that I was ruining her life over something that was actually my own fault for being such a disappointment as a husband. She said if I had just been more like Aaron from the start, none of this would have happened. I saved every single one of those messages. Aaron jumped in too. He texted me saying I needed to man up and let Gemma keep the apartment, that it was the least I could do after failing her for 4 years. He actually said I owed them this. My brother, who stole my wife, told me I owed them my apartment. I need everyone to fully absorb what just happened here. This woman left this man for his brother, called him useless, kissed Aaron in front of him at the divorce signing, and then, when consequences showed up, you're being petty. The audacity is astronomical. She really thought she could have the affair, the insults, and the apartment. That's not having your cake and eating it too. That's eating someone else's cake, insulting their baking, and then asking for the recipe. And Aaron texted saying OP owed them. Bro stole his wife and is talking about what's owed? The entitlement is so thick you could spread it on toast. These people genuinely believe they're the victims here, and that level of delusion should be studied by scientists. Then came the family dinner. My mother Mabel called demanding I come to Sunday dinner to discuss everything like adults. I went because I knew exactly what was coming. The whole family was there. My father Oliver sat quietly, like he always does while Mabel ran the show. Aaron and Gemma sat across from me looking smug. Mabel started in immediately about how I was being unnecessarily cruel. She said Aaron and Gemma were in love, and I should accept that gracefully instead of making everyone's lives difficult. She actually told me that if I had been a better husband, Gemma wouldn't have needed to look elsewhere. I asked Mabel point blank if she was seriously taking Aaron's side after he slept with my wife. She said it wasn't about sides, it was about family harmony and moving forward. Then she said something that showed me exactly where I stood. She said Aaron had always been the more capable son and maybe Gemma just recognized that before I did. Family harmony. Family harmony. Ma'am, your golden child slept with your other son's wife and you're talking about harmony? That's like setting a house on fire and complaining that the fire trucks are too loud. Mabel really sat there with a straight face and told her son that his wife cheating with his brother was basically a correction, like the universe was just fixing a clerical error. Maybe Gemma just recognized that before I did. Recognized what? That you've been telling her Aaron was better for 20+ years? You planted that seed, Mabel. You spent decades making one son feel worthless, and now you're shocked he's not gracefully accepting his wife leaving him for the son you actually wanted? The math is mathing, and she doesn't even see it. That's when I told them about Aaron's real situation. See, during my research phase, I talked to a cousin who works at the same company as Aaron. Turns out Aaron's big promotion everyone kept praising? He got passed over for it 6 months ago. He's been lying to the whole family about his career. He's actually on a performance improvement plan and barely hanging on to his current position. Aaron's face went white. Gemma looked at him like she'd never seen him before. Mabel started demanding to know if this was true. Aaron tried to deflect, said I was making things up out of jealousy, but I had dates and details. I asked him to pull up his LinkedIn right there and show everyone his current title. He couldn't. Gemma started asking Aaron why he lied to her. Aaron got defensive and said it was temporary and he was going to fix it. Gemma reminded him he had promised they would move somewhere nicer once she got out of my apartment. Aaron said they could still do that. They just needed to adjust the timeline. That's when I dropped the second piece of information. Ian, the landlord, had already processed my notice. Gemma had 23 days to either qualify for a new lease on her own or find somewhere else to live. And based on what I knew about Aaron's actual salary, their combined income probably wouldn't qualify. I left that dinner with Gemma crying, and Aaron trying to explain himself to both her and my parents simultaneously. But here's where it gets more complicated. The next day, Gemma texted me asking if we could meet and talk privately. The golden child was spray painted this whole time, Folks, this is poetic justice so beautiful it belongs in a museum. Aaron built his entire identity, his family status, his attractiveness to Gemma, his superiority over his brother, on a foundation of lies. He's been playing a character. Performance improvement plan. Aaron was out here acting like CEO Aaron, borrowing money while pretending to be the success story. And the instant Gemma found out the golden pedestal was made of cardboard, look how fast that love started wobbling. She didn't leave OP for Aaron the person. She left for Aaron the idea, the upgrade, the better model, the ambitious one. Turns out she traded a Honda Civic that runs perfectly for a Ferrari that's actually 3 kids in a trench coat. And now she wants to meet privately? Girl is about to try some damage control because she just realized she burned her bridge and the other side is on fire too. Update 2. So Gemma wanted to meet privately. I agreed because honestly, I wanted to see her squirm. We met at a diner near my new place on a Wednesday evening. She showed up looking rough like she hadn't slept well in days. She started by saying she needed to explain some things. She said Aaron had been pursuing her for over a year before anything happened between them. He kept telling her she deserved someone with more ambition, more drive, someone who could give her the life she wanted. And yes, she admitted that sounded bad, but she said I had to understand that I never made her feel like a priority. She said I was comfortable with being average and she wanted more. I asked her if Aaron's lies about his job changed how she felt about all of this. She got quiet. Then she admitted that Aaron was in worse shape than I had revealed at dinner. He wasn't just on a performance improvement plan. He was 3 months behind on his car payments and had been borrowing money from Mabel to stay afloat. The whole golden child image? Completely fake. He'd been living beyond his means for years trying to maintain appearances. Aaron spent a year pursuing his brother's wife. A year of, you deserve better. And, he's not ambitious enough. That's not falling in love, that's a hostile takeover. He didn't accidentally catch feelings. He ran a whole marketing campaign against his own brother's marriage. And Gemma sitting there talking about wanting more, while admitting Aaron is 3 months behind on his car payments? Girl, more of what? Debt? The man is cosplaying success while his actual life is falling apart like wet paper. She wanted the upgrade lifestyle so bad she didn't even check if the product was real before buying. This is what happens when you choose the idea of someone over the reality of someone. OP was boring and average with his stable job and paid bills. Meanwhile, Aaron is out here 1 bad month away from asking strangers for bus fare. Gemma said she didn't know any of this until after she left me. Aaron had painted this picture of their future together with a nicer apartment, vacations, the whole lifestyle upgrade. Now she was realizing none of that was real. I asked her what exactly she wanted from me. She said she needed more time with the apartment, just another month or 2. She said she could figure something out if she just had more time. She actually suggested that maybe I could talk to Ian and extend my notice or co-sign something for her temporarily. I laughed. I told her absolutely not. She made her choice when she walked out with Aaron. She called me useless, a failure, dead weight. Those were her exact words. Why would I lift a single finger to help her now? She started getting emotional, saying I was being cruel, and that this wasn't the man she married. I told her the man she married would have probably helped her, but she spent 4 years comparing him unfavorably to his brother, and then left him for that same brother while insulting him to his face. That man was gone. She left the diner crying. This isn't the man I married. No, ma'am. You're right, because the man you married still believed he might be enough for you. The man you married hadn't been called useless to his face by his wife and brother simultaneously. The man you married hadn't watched you kiss someone else while laughing about being free from him. You killed that man, Gemma. You don't get to mourn the version of someone you personally destroyed and then ask that corpse for favors. She really sat across from him asking for a cosign after everything. That takes a level of audacity that I genuinely cannot comprehend. Like, girl, you called him dead weight and now you want him to carry you? The cognitive dissonance is doing Olympic-level gymnastics. 2 days later, Aaron showed up at my apartment. Just appeared at my door on a Friday night demanding we talk. He was angry, saying I had humiliated him in front of the entire family and now Gemma was threatening to leave him because she felt deceived. I told him that wasn't my problem. He deceived everyone, including me, including our parents, including Gemma. He built his whole identity around being better than me, and it was all a lie. Aaron said I didn't understand the pressure he was under. Mabel always expected him to succeed, to be the star of the family. He said I had it easy because nobody expected anything from me. He actually said that being the disappointment was a privilege because I never had to live up to anything. I told him to get out of my apartment, but before he left, he said something that stuck with me. He said Mabel was planning to offer Gemma a room at our parents' house, temporarily so she wouldn't be homeless. He said Mabel blamed me for this whole situation and was going to make sure everyone knew I was the villain here. Sure enough, the next day, Mabel texted me saying we needed to have a serious conversation about my behavior. She said I was tearing this family apart with my vindictiveness, and that a real man would handle this situation with grace, instead of trying to destroy everyone around him. Same language Gemma used. Useless. Not a real man. Interesting how that keeps coming up. I didn't respond to Mabel's text, but I did start making some more calls. Because here's the thing about my mother offering Gemma a room. My father Oliver actually owns that house. And Oliver has been quietly disagreeing with Mabel for years without ever saying anything. I decided it was time to have a conversation with my father, just the two of us. Being the disappointment was a privilege. I need everyone to sit with that sentence because it tells you everything about how Aaron's brain works. He really stood there and said, "You had it easy because nobody loved you enough to have expectations." Brother, that's not the flex you think it is. That's admitting you knew your parents treated him worse and you benefited from it. And then Mabel, using the exact same language as Gemma? Not a real man? Now we see where Gemma learned it. Mabel has been programming everyone around her to see OP as lesser, and Gemma just absorbed the family script. The mom created the conditions for this affair by spending decades establishing that Aaron was the prize and OP was the consolation. And now she wants to house the affair partner? In the house she doesn't even own? Oliver sitting quiet all these years is about to matter in a very real way. Final update. I met my father Oliver at a hardware store parking lot on a Tuesday morning. His choice of location. He said he didn't want Mabel knowing we were talking. Oliver had always been quiet. He let Mabel run the household, make the decisions, favor Aaron openly, but that didn't mean he agreed with any of it. He told me he had watched for years as Mabel built Aaron up while tearing me down, and he always felt guilty for not stepping in. He said he was a coward, and he knew it. I asked him about Mabel's plan to move Gemma into their house. Oliver said Mabel had already started preparing the guest room. She had decided this was happening without even consulting him. But Oliver said that house was in his name, purchased with his inheritance before they got married. Mabel had no legal say in who lived there. I didn't ask Oliver to do anything. I just laid out the facts. I told him everything. How Gemma and Aaron had humiliated me at the mediation. How they kissed in front of me. How they both called me a failure and laughed. I told him about Aaron's lies, his debt. How he had borrowed money from Mabel while pretending to be successful. I told him that Mabel was now using their home to reward the people who destroyed my marriage. Oliver listened to all of it. Then he said he needed to think. A hardware store parking lot because he didn't want his wife to know. That tells you everything about this marriage and this family dynamic. Oliver has been a ghost in his own home for decades, watching Mabel run the show, too conflict-averse to ever push back. And look, I'm not going to pretend that's okay. He should have stepped in years ago. But there's something happening here that's actually kind of beautiful. OP didn't ask his dad for anything. He didn't beg, didn't manipulate, didn't demand loyalty. He just told the truth and let Oliver sit with it. After years of being the family scapegoat, OP gave his father the dignity of making his own choice. That's more grace than anyone in this story has shown him. Oliver saying, "I was a coward," that's the first honest thing anyone in this family has said in years. 3 days later, Gemma's lease deadline hit. Ian processed the termination. Gemma had failed to qualify for a new lease on her own because her income wasn't sufficient without a cosigner. She packed her things, expecting to move into my parents' house. She showed up there with her bags, and Oliver met her at the door and told her she wasn't welcome. He said his home wasn't going to be used to shelter the woman who betrayed his son. Mabel apparently lost her mind, screaming at Oliver that he was undermining her, that this was her family too. Oliver said the house was his, and his decision was final. Gemma had nowhere to go. Aaron's apartment was a cramped studio he could barely afford. His car had been repossessed the week before because he couldn't make the payments. He had nothing to offer her. Oliver chose his son. For maybe the first time in this man's life, his father actually chose him. Not because OP begged, not because of manipulation, because Oliver finally looked at the full picture and decided that enough was enough. Mabel screaming about being undermined? Ma'am, you've been undermining your own son for his entire life. You've been preparing a guest room for the woman who destroyed his marriage while calling him the villain. You don't get to talk about family when you've spent decades making one of your children feel like he doesn't belong to it. And Gemma standing there with her bags, expecting a soft landing that didn't come? Welcome to consequences. You wanted the upgrade life so bad, and now you're looking at Aaron's cramped studio with no car, realizing the boring average life you mocked was actually pretty good. 2 weeks after the divorce was finalized, Gemma showed up at my doorstep. I opened the door and there she was, suitcase beside her, mascara smeared, looking like she hadn't eaten properly in days. She started talking immediately, saying she had made a terrible mistake, that Aaron wasn't who she thought he was, that she had been deceived and manipulated. She actually said she was betrayed by Aaron. The irony was incredible. She asked if she could stay with me temporarily, just until she figured things out. She said she knew she had hurt me, but she was desperate and had nobody else. She said she would do anything, that she would make it up to me, that she was sorry for everything she said. I stood there looking at the woman who called me useless, who kissed my brother in front of me while I signed away our marriage, who spent 4 years making me feel like I wasn't enough. I told her no. I told her she chose Aaron. She chose to mock me. She chose to walk out. Now she could live with those choices. I said I wasn't her backup plan and I wasn't her safety net. I told her to leave and not come back. She stood there begging, actually begging, saying please over and over. I closed the door. Aaron lost his job 2 weeks later. Mabel still blames me for everything. Oliver and I have dinner once a week now. Gemma is apparently staying with some distant relative across the state. She called me a useless failure. She said a real man would satisfy her. She laughed while I signed those papers. I'm not laughing anymore. I don't need to. Watching her beg on my doorstep was enough.